Coming up, the battle of the Hunter Rugby Union finals continues. Meanwhile, bad news for Knights NLW player Caitlin Moran. She is suspended for this week, becoming the first ever one to do so. But also, we'll continue our look at local sports news from 2003. That's coming up next here on NBN's Local Sports News. Good evening, my name is Conklin McLeod of NBN's Local Sports News. Tonight, it's a battle of the Hunter Rugby Union finals. NLW player Caitlin Moran suspended over a controversial tweet about the Queen. And we'll have a look at more highlights from your local sports news from 2003. But first, it's a battle of the Hunter Rugby Union finals, and it's one that we have all been waiting for. Because of that, it's become huge for many of them. And also, it's a battle between Hamilton and, of course, the Wanderers in the preliminary final this weekend. They're a team that has been rarely unbeaten throughout the season until at least now. And of course, it's become huge. And of course, the Hamilton Hawks will officially make history. But of course, they had to wait. And of course, had to quickly have the bye for it. And of course, Hamilton had to go through to the preliminary final. Despite losing by 2 to Merewether Carlton in the qualifying final. And of course, Merewether then later went straight through to the grand final. Meanwhile, in the games, of course, in the first week of the finals, Merewether Carlton demolished Hamilton 28-26, while the Wanderers are through to the preliminary final to join Hamilton after beating Maitland in the elimination final 22-70. And of course, the question is, who will join the Wanderers? And of course, the question is, who will join the Greens, which are, of course, Merewether Carlton, the Hamilton Hawks, or the Wanderers in the grand final next weekend. Meanwhile, to soccer, and of course the Northern League 1 grand final has been decided up at Jack McLaughlin Oval. And of course, Newcastle and Belmont Swansea are up against each other. And because of that, the grand final will be played this Saturday. While in the Hunters NPL men's competition, it's week 2 of the finals. And because of that, it's going to be a massive one as Lambton take on Newcastle this Saturday. And also, there's good news for Maitland. They're up against Broadmeadow. While it's the first week of the Hunters NPL women's finals, it's of course Warners Bay up against Broadmeadow Mage. It's of course Warners Bay up against Broadmeadow in a major semi-final this Sunday. Also on Sunday in the minor semi-final, Newcastle Olympic are up against Charlestown Azzurri. The Knights' Caitlin Moran has been given a suspension as well as a 1-match ban, and it's all because of a controversial comment about the Queen. And also because of that, she'll miss this weekend's coverage. Moran will face the NRL judiciary and will miss the Knights' clash with the Dragons on the Central Coast this Sunday. Davis will come back with more after the break.
The big red ball from the bush to the bay. Yes, it's Lotto. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. It's the big one you want. It's the game for you. 'Cause it's the big red ball that makes dreams come true. Dreams come true. Dreams come true. The big red ball. The big red ball. It's the big red ball that makes dreams come true.
There are sports, and there are extreme sports. Just like there are compact four-wheel drives, and there's the Nissan X-Trail. An extreme all-mode four-wheel drive system, an extreme interior, and extreme power. The X-Trail. Only Nissan takes the compact four-wheel drive to the extreme. Wake up in the morning, gotta get because the Herald is the best way to start your day.
It'll be huge for every side of the AFL Hunter Central Coast when it takes on in the men's and women's grand finals. And of course, first up, it's an all Central Coast grand final between Terrigal Avoca and, of course, Killarney Vale. And then, in the women's Black Diamond Plate Cup, it's a Lake Macquarie affair between Cardiff and Lake Macquarie. It's finals we've never seen before, but however, it's about to become alive. Grand finals for this year. And also, they've since become more huge. Meanwhile, the AFL Hunter Central Coast will have a Black Diamond Cup men's grand final. And also, for the first time since 2014, there will be an all Central Coast affair between Killarney Vale and Terrigal Avoca. But thankfully, it's a battle between Lake Macquarie and Newcastle, as Nelson Bay are up against Newcastle City in the Black Diamond Plate men's competition grand final. While it's a battle of Lake Macquarie versus the Hunter, Warners Bay are up against Muswellbrook in the Black Diamond Shield. Also in the Women's Black Diamond Cup, Newcastle City are up against Killarney Vale in the grand final. And of course, Newcastle City hoping to be the favourites. And of course, it'll be an all-local affair between Cardiff and Lake Macquarie, with the Cardiff Hawks taking on Lake Macquarie in the Black Diamond Women's Plate Grand Final, which occurs this Saturday. And because of that, Cardiff are, of course, the favourites to win. Let's go back to the best local sporting moments of 2003, of course. And of course, let's have a look at some of the best. As Jim Cowan reports, It also has one of the most incredible moments for our Newcastle Knights, where Andrew Johns kicked one of the best goals as our Knights secured one of the best victories to secure a 32-30 win in round 14.
Like he's done so many times before, Andrew Johns added a memorable moment to an already long list on Friday night, this time against the Dragons. You couldn't have scripted a better way for him to be honoured for passing 200 games at the club, on his home ground that's often likened by commentators to a temple. The masses remained well after full time to worship the game's greatest player. One of the few Knights to enter the 200 club, the milestone was recognised by his predecessor in former Newcastle skipper Tony Butterfield. Tired emotionally and physically after the build-up of a club game in Brisbane, followed by the pressure cooker that is Origin football, it was those cheers that helped him get through the match. Humbled but happy to have given his faithful another one to remember.
Yeah, it was nice that after the game so many people stuck around. It just goes to show, I suppose, what the footy means to the people up here, and I really appreciate it.
Tomorrow night, a look at the early years in the red and blue and the combination of the Johns brothers.
There's almost as many Knights coming back as there are missing this week, but in football, like life, there's few guarantees. While Robbie O'Davis is expected to play, a returning Craig Hall and sore Adam McDougall won't train until Thursday, and Steve Simpson and Matt Jobson are waiting on doctors' orders.
I guess our depth's getting tested as it is, so we'd like to think that they can all take their place.
Friday night will also mark the Newcastle first-grade return of veteran forward Tim Madison, should he overcome knee problems. Fortunately for promising Scone-bred junior Todd Lowry, nothing seems to stand in the way of his likely first-grade debut.
I think, we've always thought that Todd would play first grade at some point. He just had a wretched run with injury for the last couple of years, has now played 4 or 5 games at first division level and has been playing pretty well. So,
as expected, Sean Rudder will return to the 5/8 role, with Kirk Gidley to assume halfback duties. Andrew Johns' other role as captain, meanwhile, might fall to Simpson, who, if fit, will also be called upon to lead a young forward pack. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Trailing by 8 points just after the break, Clayton Maxworthy began a late charge for Wingham, making valuable ground for his side in the lead-up to a Joel Kleindice try. Finding themselves in All Saints territory once again, Wingham also found confidence, taking the odd risk not once, but twice, with a brilliant Ben Webber cutout reaching Tyler Blanche, who went over, putting Wingham in front 16-14. In a frustrating second half, All Saints just didn't see any ball, as Joel Kleindice scored a hat-trick to continue the Mid-North Coast side's second half romp. In Tooheys Cup Rugby League, South Newcastle was put on the back foot early by an informed Maitland at Townsend Oval overnight. A touch judge ruling saw South penalised for stripping in the opening minutes, which proved costly, with Maitland scoring from the next set of 6. Straight running was the key for the Pumpkin Pickers' next 4-pointer, Dave Anderson crashing over for his side's second. The referee's whistle didn't seem to be blowing South's way, Maitland cashing in on costly turnovers with Mick Williams next to score. 2 quick tries saw the Lions back in the match, but an offside penalty was enough to give Maitland another 2, sending the visitors on their way to a 30-14 victory. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Both sides came off solid opening round wins, but the long trip over for the Westerners looked to be running against them early, with country fullback Tony Gowing going in for the home side. Perth soon found their feet with a pushover try, before Cockatoo halfback Dave Wood wrestled back the advantage for country. Down 15-11 at the break, Perth did all the scoring in the second half, starting with Brett Watson, before another close to time to wrap up the match and firm them as favourites for the title. Meanwhile, New South Wales Country Rugby League was beaten by its Queensland counterpart at Roma, also at the weekend, 36-30. In Group 21 Rugby League, Singleton continued Aberdeen's lean run, while Scone remained undefeated, beating Denman 28-12. The Newcastle North Stars' great National Ice Hockey League season continues with another win over the defending champions, the Sydney Bears, thanks largely to Darryl Batt. Sydney levelled in the second period through Don Berg, before Batt sealed the win with a second after another assist from Jake Ludwig for a 2-1 win. Some big wins in the Premier Hockey League for North, South and Maitland, while the battle for fourth hotted up after the entrants beat the Tigers. Newcastle City scored a huge win in Black Diamond AFL, thrashing Warners Bay. Cardiff and Nelson Bay also got the points. And another great result for redhead triathlete Boyd Conrick overnight, just beaten in a sprint finish by former world champion Chris McCormick in the La Jolla Triathlon in San Diego to finish second. Naming a side he knows could change dramatically by game day, Coach Hagan is content to play a waiting game once again and sit in the Maroons camp, just hoping his Blue Stars don't get hurt.
We'd like to think that we'll get our 6 players back in one piece and they'll back up as well as they did the other week. But certainly if that's the case, it's a pretty strong football team.
The named starting side is one of the strongest of the season, with only the injured Matt Parsons the most notable absence. However, at this time of year, whether or not more join his sideline on Sunday is still to be decided. If it wasn't for injury, Steve Simpson could well be lining up for the Blues tomorrow night, but he isn't even considering a recall in this series.
So I've sort of set them aside for the moment and just want to get back and play and hopefully keep injury free.
He'll be one of those aiming up to plug a leaking Knights defence. Almost constant changes haven't helped in recent weeks, but with Newcastle conceding more than 30 points in 6 games this season, 4 of those in the last 5, it's time to turn the stats around.
There's also been a number of soft tries in amongst some of what we've done, so that's probably the most disappointing part of our record in conceding points.
Over the years, these two sides have built a healthy rivalry, regularly meeting each other in tournament finals. Holding a small lead heading into the final quarter, Newcastle then turned it on, Joshua Cohen finishing this. Westfields was kept scoreless for most of the final term as Newcastle continued to rack up the points. Adam Stanger's 24 points and several assists helped him to the MVP award, while few could go past Eli Sulai. He top scored and was strong off the boards as well in the 92-55 win. Newcastle highs first since 1980. As a teenager, Greg Owens made a name for himself as a super sub for Newcastle's then flagship NSL side, the Breakers. A few groin operations and 2 grand finals for Sydney Olympic later, he's back and he couldn't be happier.
I was just very happy, it's been a long time since I played back up here in front of the fans that I left about 4 or 5 years ago, so it'd be good to return home.
Disappointed to see his former Sydney club in such turmoil, Owens knows he had to return to a strong club to continue his bid to reach Ollie Roo's selection for Athens 2004.
That's what I'm trying to look forward to, and with the Olympic now pretty much gone, I need to play in a good side and train with a good side.
Beyond that, the 22-year-old still harbours dreams of an overseas contract, but for now, he's keen to just settle back in at home.
I know most of the guys, I was in the training camps with a lot of them, and I played against most of them, so you get to know them through the system.
The club is close to re-signing luckless Australian under-20s player Michael Prentice as well, after a season written off to injury. But it's understood he'll be the last, with Alex Moriera and Scott Bailey at long odds to remain at United. Early photos reveal the enthusiasm of two young boys, something that would later become the trademark of their play. Once Andrew and Matthew Johns went from the backyard to the big time in the mid-1990s, they simply toyed around again. Always destined to represent, the Super League war shot both interstate and Australian teams ahead of schedule. But instead of succumbing to the pressures that come with it, they revelled in it. And the fun just continued.
And they never had a ball out of their hands. If we were in the hotel, they were up and down the hallway. If they were having breakfast, they still had a ball and doing what they were doing. And they'd whistle to each other and call to each other. We didn't know what they were doing. But they were just two immense talents having the time of their life.
In terms of football, that came in 1997. With that moment, the whole club had been waiting for, the first ever premiership.
You just sort of forget, how enjoyable it is and how lucky we are that, we are brothers and how close we are and we got to play together and it's something we love.
A reluctant leader, Andrew assumed the captaincy in 2001 with Matthew no longer by his side, but Joey played like he was born for it, finding new ways to terrorise teams as skipper of club, state and country.
He doesn't say a lot sometimes, but he certainly does a lot on the football field, and I think the players respond to him really well and they work with him and they follow him in the trenches.
Tomorrow night, the game's most remembered for John's magic.
That first half was just the most amazing bit of football.
Remember this effort? Like the Storm, every NRL side has their own Andrew Johns story. A time where he doesn't just guide his team to victory, but practically beats them on his own. The Raiders suffered it in 2001 when Joey scored a club record 34 points. Knights coach Michael Hagan, who also played with Andrew, can't go past the match from the same season, where after missing 10 weeks with a knee injury, Johns came back to blow Brisbane away in an incredible performance. Scoring 2 tries himself and with a hand or boot in several others, it was a devastating display.
I couldn't believe that someone could come back from that injury and not just ease their way in, but just from the off really dominate the game, and he was outstanding that night.
Paul Harrigan watched Andrew set up that try in 1997, which led to his most cherished career moment. But it's the 2001 grand final that left the Chief in awe when he thought he'd seen it all.
That first half was just the most amazing bit of football I've ever seen against a team that had broken all club records.
It led to Johns claiming the Clive Churchill Medal for Man of the Match. It sits proudly alongside an unprecedented 3 Dally M Awards and 2 Golden Boots, the honour bestowed on the world's best player. But there's more important things that Andrew holds close.
I think the thing that's going to stick out is all the friendships I've formed with players I play with now and have in the past, and those things will sort of last forever.
Tomorrow night, life in League's Fishbowl and just what's left to achieve.
The stand-in captain trained strongly today, and Steve Simpson is confident about tomorrow night's game in the cold Penrith air.
Yeah, it's different, I suppose, but it's a challenge I'm sort of looking forward to, and I think it's going to be a great night for us tomorrow night.
I think it's something that he might have expected early in the week, but I think he'll handle it pretty good. He's a pretty good leader for us. He's been here a long while now, so I think he'll lead from the front pretty well.
The boys left for Sydney this afternoon ahead of tomorrow night's game. Blake Mueller will replace Matt Jobson, who's out with a shoulder injury, while Tim Maddison will start. Coach Hagan says with some key seniors out, the young guns are coming of age.
Kirk Gidley, Sean Rudder, Luke Quigley have spent a bit of time together now, trying to get our team organised. So today we had a pretty good session, and I think they'll get better the more time they spend there.
Yeah, we're pretty confident. Penrith are going well, but there's a few little areas we think we can get them, I think, tomorrow night. So we're just going to go down there and really tear in and rip in and play for the full 80 minutes and see what happens.
And there's still time to work on these goal kicks before tomorrow night.
All the talk of what's happening in harness racing circles of late has overshadowed the lead-up to the Newcastle Guineas, which features tomorrow night. The $15,000 event for 3-year-olds showcases some of the sport's rising stars of the track, with 3 local runners involved tomorrow night. The favourite is South Coast pacer Black Line. For the hunter, Super Squash is the region's biggest championship for the sport, and after 17 weeks of competition, Dora Creek has proved too good for Newcastle's international team, winning 11-7 overall. It was tough going early. In the number 1 men's final, International got the jump on the eventual winners, with Daniel Kowalski beating Kurt Sagala in a 5-setter. International did take out the women's final. A big game tomorrow at Cessnock, where the Goannas host Wyong and Newcastle Rugby League. The other match of the round is on Sunday at Harker, where old rivals Wests and Lakes United meet. In Newcastle Premier Rugby, would-be premiers the Waratahs play defending premiers Hamilton in what shapes to be the one to watch. And in NBN soccer, Edgeworth square off against Western on Sunday in what will be a close one. Broadmeadow, meanwhile, faced Premiers Highfields after losing its first game of the season midweek in a catch-up game.
Under the watchful eye of coach Troy Fletcher and injured front rower Dave Goodridge, West had Lakes down 10-0 after just 10 minutes. It didn't take the Seagulls long to strike back, though, Hugh Ryan crossing for his side's first of the day. Minutes later, Andrew Ryan struck again for the visitors, bringing the margin to 2 points before a lenient 10-metre rule and spirited defence saw West become restless leading into the break. Back from the sheds, and a win against the Feed led to a Ben Donaldson try, but Darren Ford and Justin White replied to level the scores. A lucky try to Brett Cullen and strong running from Kurt Stallworthy to set up Wayne March was enough to start a late roll for West. The Rosellas on their way to a 34-16 full-time scoreline. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Grand finalist Lambton made a great start at Adamstown Oval, Reen Ferguson firing a silver bullet that ricocheted off the post. Teammate Shane Roberts was proving too clever at the other end, forcing Merryweather's Harry Webber to use his head to find the equaliser. Webber soon had his second, and suddenly Lambton was in trouble. Ferguson, though, kept his cool and set up Ben Gawthrop. 2-2 at half-time, neither side found the net in the second, nor the opening act of extra time. The restart, though, saw Lambton captain Blair Newham finish a real team effort. The side now meets Central Coasters St Edwards in the next round. The golf and Nick Flanagan and James Nitty's stars continue to rise, with the Newcastle players selected to represent Australia at the Asia-Pacific Teams Championships in September. Both are currently overseas preparing for tournaments in America. And young Lake Macquarie sailors Nathan Outeridge and Aidan Menzies are preparing for a busy series of international regattas. The pair leave Saturday to begin their build-up to defend their World Youth title off Portugal before events in Austria and Spain. All this comes amid exams, while Nathan's also just been named the State Youth Sailor of the Year. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. The Brown Trophy action began last night with tournament organisers cleverly pitting New South Wales against Queensland. Just like the league game, the Blues opened the scoring, although you don't see a Canadian import playing Origin football. The goal was Andrew Truman's first of 2, with Tim Morgan also bagging a double to help New South Wales open with a 5-1 win. Tonight the Blues are seeking their third victory and a berth in Saturday's semis. The State Schools Indoor Cricket Championship, meantime, wraps up tomorrow, with Year 9 and 10 students from the south coast to Coffs Harbour battling it out. Sydney teams, though, are traditionally the ones to beat. After the 300 sides that started the CHS Open basketball knockout, it's come down to the final 8 boys and girls schools at Broadmeadow. Newcastle defeated Kempsey's Melville High in the quarters and went on to earn a berth in tomorrow's decider. Hunter Sports wasn't so lucky in the girls' semis, losing to Terrigal. And it wasn't an ideal day for the Sporting High School, with Katara causing an upset in the Bill Turner Cup. Tom Trudenick sealing the win with a golden goal.
They don't come more casual than Daniel Abraham. He returned from some days R&R in the bush, where he was more concerned with catching pigs than chasing contracts.
Yeah, I ducked away for a night, mate, but in the back of my mind, the contract was sitting there.
A Valentine Jr., the 22-year-old has steadily become a key member of the Knights pack and hopes it stays that way.
Yeah, I've always sort of come up through the ranks thinking, sort of hearing about blokes going to 1,000 different clubs and this and that. I'd sort of always hoped to see myself as a one-man, sort of one club sort of set up.
He's been outstanding in every game this year. It was close to our best at the weekend, I thought.
Even with Matt Parsons still a few weeks off a return and Ben Kennedy suspended, the young pack has a strong look about it. Not so Mark Hughes. The centre will have scans on his troublesome knee and wrist tomorrow, but will again start off the bench on Sunday.
I think his confidence is down a little bit because the knee is still causing some trouble. And I think the other thing that you can't understate is the fact that Anthony Quinn's been playing terrific for a number of weeks.
Training in bleak conditions late today. It's Sunday. The Knights hope they can rain on the Bulldogs' family day. There's plenty who try to emulate Andrew John's kicking game, but the Bulldogs' Brent Sherwin is testament that practice makes perfect. A point not lost on the Knights captain.
Yeah, I think I showed Braith a few things when we went away. I think you might have showed Brett a few things, but probably his kicking game's without peer in the competition.
In fact, the Dogs have scored more tries from kicks than any other team this season, so it's not the game to lose your regular custodian, with Robbie O'Davis considered only 50-50 to play. Mark Hughes is on standby, but he too has problems, requiring an injection to help settle his knee yesterday. Treatment for a wrist problem that he's carried for a month will have to wait until next week, when the Knights enjoy the bye. First things first, though, and that's the Bulldogs.
I expect them to be probably a little bit more intense this week, so we're going to be have to be on our game to challenge them for sure.
Especially up front, and without Matt Parsons and Ben Kennedy, the skipper expects the pack to be led by Josh Perry, and he's ready to follow orders.
I've got to try and get back in that state of origin side too, so I don't want them to play better than me, and I want that blue jersey back.
Along with the likes of Adam Woolnough, Steve Simpson and Daniel Abraham, a lot rests on the young forwards this Sunday.
We've got a bye the following week, so it's pretty much means 4 points to us if we win this weekend, so it's a massive game for us.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Around 4 hours a day for the past 2 months, it's this backyard gym where you would have found the Crampton brothers, along with their father, trainer Mick. At 27, some say Jamie's shot at an Australian belt is long overdue, and he can hardly wait now it's here.
There's been a lot of frustration over the last few years, and hopefully this will let all the frustration out.
He takes on 2000 Olympian Solomon Egermine, an African boxer who's now based in Australia and the current national middleweight champion.
He's a very solid fighter. He's pretty flat-footed. Looks like he's strong on his feet and that, but he's he's fit.
At 19 wins from 20 pro bouts, Jamie hopes the hometown crowd will see him take the belt. So too, brother Ben. Undefeated as a pro, he'll fight for the vacant state junior middleweight against Sydney's Gary Comer, and he can't wait to put on a show.
This is, more or less for the Cessnock people. They've been really good supporters of ours for many years, and we just like to give something back to them.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Andrew Price never thought his shot at the top grade would have come so quickly, but at 21, the young forward has shown bigger things are still to come. And for the next 2 seasons at least, they'll be in the red and blue. Rejecting other offers, the one-time Canberran is just happy to concentrate on returning to the playing field after 2 weeks out.
Yeah, it does. It plays on your mind a lot, and just makes it really hard to concentrate on the footy when you think you could be somewhere else. So it's good to just get out of the way.
Robbie O'Davis is next on the retention list, but he'll have to accept a vastly reduced payment to stay. Western was stripped of 3 competition points in the NBN Soccer League overnight after it was found the club had used an ineligible player in a 7-0 thrashing of Edgeworth. Australian Joey Nigel Boogaard wasn't properly cleared to play, and the Eagles were awarded the competition points, moving them to second, ahead of Western on goal difference. The Northern Soccer Federation is also looking at forming a Women's Premier League and have convened a meeting on July 21 to gauge interest. And in Newcastle Rugby League, Central Charlestown coach Derek McVeigh must face the disciplinary committee after he was charged with contrary conduct overnight, his second such charge this season. The first half wasn't really one of missed opportunity, as very few were created. Eagles goalkeeper Dean Conway rarely called on, but always on duty. So too Andrew Goldman, but he may be after danger money after this clash with Kurt O'Brien. Headers too became tough work, while Brad Davies got no joy from this rib tickler. Mick Williams was all smiles after the break, scoring just 1 minute into the second half. 14 minutes later, he was at it again, controlling another well-placed ball to calmly shoot home a second from almost no angle at all. Down 2-0, Hamilton could hardly afford to give Edgeworth any more chances, but a mistake at the back gifted rookie Chris Berlin a shot on goal, and his chip shot made it 3. After being awarded 3 points midweek, today's win places Edgeworth firmly in second place.
This year's winning film took the concept of the Iraq War and turned it around so the people were being liberated from the NRL instead of a Middle East dictator.
Of rugby league loving town, and we have this invasion of the filmmaking force that comes into town and tries to liberate the Novocastrians with this filmmaking culture.
Jason Van Genderen and Corey Hopper were celebrating their win today, proud of their film that featured local ad man Art Ryan as the information minister and a statue-like figure of Andrew Johns.
I think because it's just fun. And I mean, it is quintessential Newcastle as well, which is not a judging criteria, but it's still quite funny, isn't it?
The boys won $14,000 worth of prizes for their efforts, and as well as liberating TV viewers from around-the-clock reruns of the footy show, they've gained new enthusiasm for their work.
Just the encouragement to go on and make bigger and better films, knowing that you can do it.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Adelaide may not sound like a powerhouse for provincial rugby, but after losing 2 games already in their Rugby Shield title defence, the Cockatoos needed a big game. And they delivered, hammering the Crow Eaters 48-7 in Port Macquarie to wrap up second place and set up a semi-final showdown against old rivals Queensland next weekend in Dubbo. Closer to home and in Premier Hockey, Maitland was on the attack early against the Tigers, scoring 2 quick goals. Andre Duplessis struck back with the first of his 2 for the game. But Maitland moved to 4 points clear in third place with a 5-2 win as North and South continued their battle for the minor premiership. Tennis great Ken Rosewell was in town to watch the final day of the New South Wales Junior Teams Championships in Newcastle. Northumberland, the country regional team for this area, reached the decider in the under-12 girls against Central West, and the 4-girl team got up by 2 sets to claim the Jen O'Neill Cup. And Terrigal Avoca has moved to the outright lead in Black Diamond AFL after a huge win, while joint leader Newcastle City got rolled by Cardiff. Warners Bay also joined the winners list, beating Gosford. Now we're definite to play for New South Wales tomorrow night. It's how Andrew Johns backs up for Penrith 2 days later that his club will just have to wait and see.
We're not looking that far down the track yet.
Even without Ben Kennedy, the team listed to play Penrith is one of the strongest this season, but with injury concerns and origin, the one that runs out could still be vastly different. Adam Woolnough, though, has been cleared after further scans on his neck problem.
We've just got to be careful of his injury, but
his doctor's happy for him to continue on.
After a wretched run with injury this season, Steve Simpson wants to make up for lost time and for their last performance against the Bulldogs.
I think the game against the Bulldogs were pretty disappointed with, and the boys are really wanting to make amends for that.
Meanwhile, the club could be in for a salary cap bonus of around $60,000 after a meeting with NRL auditors today. Clubs are able to use a percentage of increases to sponsorship since 2001 on retaining and purchasing players.
We're very confident we'll actually receive more dollars in than we've put in the draft figures that we've given them today.
The club is still hoping to retain several players, including Robbie O'Davis. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Each state and even New Zealand gets to fly at least one flag at this tournament, and sometimes even more. New South Wales country women, one of those representing home territory, and they looked sure to figure at the business end of the tournament on today's showing. Against Queensland North, hometown girl Michaela Domkins helped country to a healthy 10-point lead at the main break. She was in the action again at the start of the third term as country widened the buffer. One of 4 Central Coasters in the team, Laurel Roper, also shone as country finished 2 strong, winning 70-45. Their male counterparts had a tough start late today against South Australian country, but Adam Stanger stood tall on his home court as fellow Newcastle boy Josh Cohen found range as well. Down 12-5 early, Eli Sulai made an instant impact off the bench as country continued to fight hard. With NBL coaching experience in their corner, country will remain a threat throughout the tournament. But Victoria remain the one to catch. The men demolished New Zealand 101-53 today in another strong showing as they look to win a hat-trick of titles and make it number 10 from just the last 13 years.
Has put his rivals on notice at the Billabong Pro in South Africa by posting the tournament's highest scoring wave in round 2. Unfortunately, the 9.6 spelled the end of the road for the Central Coast's Adrian Buchan, while fellow Aussies Mick Fanning, Luke Egan, Joel Parkinson and Taj Burrow are through to the third round. As is world champion Andy Irons, who'll face a grudge match against the man who eliminated him at the same point last year, local hope Sean Holmes.
It's going to be in a whole lot of fair. Hopefully I get good waves and just serve smart and don't make that many mistakes.
It was the match to decide whether the Northern Blues could start planning for the semi-finals or spend the next 2 weekends locked in a battle to secure a top 5 finish. Lowly Waratah Mayfield, playing for pride and at home, gave fans something to feel warm about when Tim Conway scored early. The Blues took their time getting on the pace, but when Lee Weatherall made this break, it set up a Brett Mulholland try. Adam Brown's boot would prove a contributing factor to the 18-point difference, landing 6 goals to a single conversion by the home side. The Cheetahs battled on gamely, with winger Paul Dre scoring twice. However, a 7-5 margin gave the Blues their much-needed competition points to secure 4th on the NRL ladder and a semi-final berth. Gary Blair, NBN News.
For years, Peter Barnett dreamt about walking out on court in the NBL, but when the Newcastle Falcons folded, he thought so did his chances. With the Pirates now in town, the dream has become reality, signing overnight to a 1-year deal.
Really excited. I was really sort of sunk in today, and I'm really sort of tingling with excitement about it at the moment.
A star with the Hunters in the ABA, Barnett won Most Valuable Player honours for the Waratah League last season and is the first of 4 homegrown players that will be contracted.
Very excited that I was the first sign, but hopefully in the trials coming up soon that they will sign a couple more local guys.
To soon be playing alongside the likes of Kevin Brooks, Barnett has waited a long time to test himself against the league's best.
I'm looking forward to playing against some of those other guys as well, so it'll just be exciting to step up and have a go.
The final 3 positions in the 12-man roster will be completed after trials early next month. At 27, this is Jamie Crampton's long-awaited shot at stardom. The Cessnock local faces a tough task in 2000 Olympian Solomon Egermine as he hopes to take the Australian middleweight title from the former African-based boxer. Younger brother Ben will line up for the vacant state junior middleweight title against Gary Comer. Tomorrow night in Gosford, Big Bob Mirovic steps into the ring against Queensland heavyweight champ Danny Buzzer. But the war of words has well and truly begun.
I'm a big man, and I realise that now. I'm 120 kilograms, a big man, 6'5", and when I come forward, nothing can stop me. I don't care if you're King Kong, I'll pull you down.
Macquarie gets its chance tonight against Western Newcastle Rugby League, while Wyong face a big task tomorrow night to stay in touch with the top five when it hosts ladder leaders Raymond Terrace. Premier's Hamilton has its best chance to reel in fourth place Maitland tomorrow in Hunter Premier Rugby by taking on the Blacks at Passmore. Western get the chance to win back 3 points tomorrow in NBN Soccer League after being stripped of them midweek, while on Sunday most interest will be at Darling Street Oval where Edgeworth take on Hamilton. And after being stuck on 2,999 winners all week, Cessnock jockey Robert Thompson gets another chance to pass the famed 3,000 mark tomorrow at Randwick. Since resuming riding on Tuesday, the popular hoopers failed to salute the judge at Cessnock and Hawkesbury. He's called the bazooka, and Ben quickly loaded up and went on the attack against Sydney's Gary Comer. Fighting for the vacant New South Wales junior middleweight belt, both fighters were very willing. And Ben didn't have it all his own way. With reach on his side, though, Ben began working Comer over. An accidental head knock late in the bout still landed in the inevitable as the doctor called it off in the ninth. And the state belt was Ben's in a unanimous decision. Then it was Jamie's turn to step into the ring, and what an opponent he faced. Sporting an impressive amateur record that included representing Nigeria at Sydney 2000 as a pro, Solomon Egermine was still hard to stop. Chasing the visitors' Australian welterweight crowd, Jamie kept pace, but two powerful right hands in the fifth from the national champ rocked the hometown boy. Heading past the 8th round was new territory for Jamie, and the welcome mat came in the form of more Egermine blows. Fighting on gamely, the referee did the only thing he could in the 10th, awarding Egermine a win by TKO. The harshest critics of a cricket venue are the players, and as far as New South Wales is concerned, Newcastle's #1 oval is just that. So long as Australian one-day commitments don't call him away, rising star batsman Michael Clarke will return next year with the Blues team to play Victoria.
I think it is a big part of Newcastle cricket that the facilities are right, and they proved to us last year that they're brilliant. The wicket was great. The wicket lasted 4 days, which is very important, and like I said, we're all looking forward to coming back up here.
7 records, some stretching since the mid-1980s, have fallen on day one of the Hunter Region CHS High School Athletics meet at Glendale. One of the marks fell in the feature sprint of the day, the 17 years girls 200-metre final, where Mount Lewis High School's Bianca Williams claimed the victory in a time of 24.48 seconds, almost a second inside the old record in a finish where the top 3 beat the old mark. Second placed Alison Grapper can exact revenge tomorrow in the 100 final. The Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation is calling for nominations for a proposed Women's Premier League after a fruitful meeting overnight. Given the rapid rise in both player numbers and quality, the Federation hopes to field a 6-team competition next year. And Wanji sailors Nathan Atteridge and Aidan Menzies may be leading after day one of the World Youth titles in Portugal, but they've already had another win at home, named the Australian Youth Sailors of the Year.
Westfield Sports High had the first opportunity, which set the standard for the rest of the game. There was no shortage of shots on goal, with most coming against the run of play. Daniel Soren's unlucky not to get this shot past the keeper, and they were the real stars of the match, both goalies saving the day on multiple occasions. Hunter Sports High's Ben McNamara proving to be a very reliable last line of defence. After a 0-0 first half, the home team began with a blaze. Ryan Clark found room for Igor Karafilovsky, with the final kick beating the keeper, albeit on the wrong side of the posts. But as the second half progressed, both teams' defensive lines tired, resulting with more shots on goal, but to no avail. McNamara again proving the difference for his team. 0-0 at full time saw both teams at it again. Hunter Sports High had its chances, but with only 4 minutes to go before a penalty shootout, heartbreak for the home side. Westfield's Taylor Borrocapro awarded the goal, sinking Hunter Sports High's hopes of a Puma Cup semi-final berth. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
Backed by strong winds, Katara enjoyed much of the early going, but finding the net was a different thing. It looked like it was going to be one of those days where chances came, but went unconverted. Tom Tredetic got himself within range, but just went too high with his shot. As the clock wound down, it looked like extra time would be needed to find a winner before Riley Cox-Ryan found just enough room to boot home the winner just a minute inside full time. Some interesting clashes in NBN Soccer League this weekend, none more so than the top-of-the-table battle between Broadmeadow and Edgeworth on Sunday. 2 games tonight in Newcastle Rugby League, but it's tomorrow that features the match of the round at Cessnock, where joint leaders Raymond Terrace take on the third-place Goannas. And in what many believe could be a dress rehearsal to this year's grand final, the Waratahs host leaders Wanderers in the top-of-the-table clash in Newcastle Premier Rugby tomorrow. Only a second separated the top 2 rows of the grid in qualifying as everyone looked for the edge on the tight and testing Sash Sandring circuit. Hector Barbara, too much. A stop-and-go penalty for a false start ruled him out of contention. Not so Casey Stoner. Starting from 5th, he quickly tacked onto the lead group as a race-long battle loomed. Even at 17, the teenager has been long earmarked for big things at this level, and on lap 11, he rode into the lead. The track offered little forgiveness as several riders came to grief. Even hometown boy Steve Jankner wasn't spared. The dogfight up front just continued as the leading bunch diced for top spot. Losing and regaining the lead, Stoner pushed his Aprilia to the limits, and after 3 falls already this season when big things loomed, he wasn't about to let another chance slip. But with little over 2 laps to go, he did relinquish the lead to Stefano Perugini. In a blanket finish, the young Australian held his nerve. Proudly walking out with the Australian flag for his first ever podium finish, the 17-year-old now sits 10th for the overall Riders' Championship.
Yeah, and of course we're more local sport from 2000. Of course, from the 90s and also from the early 2000s. Of course, that's it for now from all of us here. Good night.